Hey guys, I got to tell you something that happened last night that made me really happy and I think is pretty heartwarming. But let me get the show started and then I'll share that with you. Joining me today, comedians Christian Finnegan and Lizz Winstead. It's an awesome show. Really excited to have you listening and part of this community. My name is Pete Dominic, and it's time to stand up with me right now. Did I just not pronounce my own name well? I think I buried the M. I swallowed the M. I said Dominic. Anyway, I can speak. It's late. I'm psyched to have you joining me, and I just wanted to start by saying that last night I had a really awesome thing happening, and I wanted to share it with you. Every week now, I've been doing pretty much every week these happy hour hangouts with listeners of this show, people I refer to as the stand-up community, I guess. And this one wasn't any different than most of them. They're all really great. We go in, I think, feeling a little anxious and indifferent about the entire event and the world and what's going to happen in that conversation. And we laugh a ton and get vulnerable and share things and talk and communicate and connect. And I think we leave generally feeling just very, very, just much better. And a year ago at this time, I was in a really bad spot and really terrified about my future. I think I felt that my luck had run out after SiriusXM didn't renew my contract. At least the best gig I'd ever had run out. And what was I going to do then? I mean, there aren't jobs in media for on-air hosts. How could I rebuild? It was a super confusing and terrifying time for me. And it was the first time in my entire life that I actually didn't believe in myself. But luckily, there were hundreds or, well, thousands and thousands of people who reached out to me that said, you got to figure out a way to host a conversation, something similar to what you're doing. We need it. We need that conversation. We need those people that you were talking to. We love it. We want it. And we'll do whatever we can to help support you. And hundreds of you have. Almost 800 now people have signed up for paid subscriptions for this podcast. It's amazing. It's an amazing community that we've built. And last night we were hanging out, and at the end of it, Vicky, who is a really integral part of our community, is a longtime listener to the show, said how happy she was to have made so many new friends through this community. And I am so excited and happy and honored and so purpose-driven because that's what's happening here. And so I just wanted to take a quick minute, I guess 2 minutes here at the top, to say thank you. If you haven't signed up for a paid subscription, but you have been listening, that's okay. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of the show. Thank you for your feedback, your criticism, your ideas. Thank you, thank you, thank you for helping me build this podcast and the community that is partnering with it each and every day. I obviously couldn't do it without your support, and it just keeps getting better. Both the podcast and the community gets bigger and better, and just so many amazing people. Most people I do believe are good. This election has made us look at ourselves, our own country and society, and it's been troubling, no doubt. It's been confusing. We're having a hard time understanding each other, talking to each other, looking at each other, living near each other. But there are mostly good people, and there is probably good in almost everybody, right? Except maybe Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump. But I've found so many of you, and you found me. So thank you. All right. So that out of the way, that big thank you and an invite to join us so that you can be a part of that community and join our hangouts and join the Discord platform at patreon.com/Pete Dominic, or just go to the paid subscription link and be a part of our community. The other really exciting news is that after a year, I've decided to partner with a company and a nonprofit, actually, to create a sponsorship for the show. And I've been resistant to that. I had people reaching out when I first started and throughout, but I've been resistant to take on advertising. It's something that I'm not comfortable with yet, and it's something that I really wanted to have be built by you. If it mattered enough, the show, you would support it with a couple of bucks, and that's what so many of you have done. And so, but now I'm ready to take on partnerships and sponsors, and many of you have encouraged me to do that, but they have to be for products, and in this case, an organization that's purpose-driven, that I truly believe in. And so I'm very excited that I'm working with GiveWell, which is an amazing organization that does very important work. See, we're only a few weeks from Giving Tuesday, which is this International Day of Charitable Giving at the beginning of the holiday season. And if you're giving a donation to a nonprofit, and there are, hundreds of thousands of them in this country, you want to make sure that your dollars are doing the most good. That's why you got to check out givewell.org and learn about how your money can do the most good. This organization, I know the people running it. I know the ideas that it's inspired by effective altruism. Peter Singer, look him up. But for over 10 years, GiveWell.org has helped donors find charities and projects that save and improve lives the most per dollar. You know that I am a person who cares a lot about data and evidence, unlike Donald Trump's lawyers and many of his supporters. But I don't want to be divisive. I want you to make a donation, and I want you to use GiveWell to help. They dedicate 20,000 hours a year researching all kinds of charitable organizations. They handpick a few of the highest impact, evidence-backed charities. All that research, by the way, is publicly available for free on their website. The Boston Globe calls GiveWell the gold standard for giving. So if you want your donation to help as much as possible, then go to givewell.org right now, givewell.org right now. And if you want your donation to have even more impact, act soon. Any listeners of Stand Up who become new GiveWell donors will have their first donation matched up to $250 when you go to givewell.org/standup and select podcasts and Stand Up with Pete Dominick at the checkout. This matching offer is only good for as long as funds last. This is a really special opportunity for even a small donation to make a big impact. Get your first donation matched up to $250 when you go to givewell.org/standup. Givewell.org/standup. Whether you give $5 or $250, it's really helpful to me and the show as well, so you can help me promote more great organizations like this one, which help me bring you the great guests that I'm having conversations with every day. Givewell.org/standup right now. And let me start by just playing a few things for you that you may or may not have heard. And you can think of the top of the show like a clip show sometimes. These first 15 to 20 minutes, I will play several audio clips, almost every podcast, almost every episode, as long as I have the time and energy to do it, and just give you context of what happened, generally speaking, the day before. A little, obviously, my commentary around it, but I got some awesome and important clips that I wanted to share with you. And we got to start with the insanity from yesterday that took place at a press conference where Donald Trump's lawyers, who are trying to launch a coup in as recklessly as they are, let's be clear with what they're doing, had a press conference and said all kinds of crazy shit, including Rudy Giuliani and a woman named Sidney Powell. Now, the really insane thing was that Rudy Giuliani's head started leaking, and he also was quoting from the movie My Cousin Vinny. So it was, of course, another day of the theater of the absurd and the bizarre country that we now live in, where some might argue this really is the dumbest time to be alive. Nonetheless, there he was, Rudy Giuliani, making a crazed, insane, conspiracy-laden case for why Donald Trump won. Here's how Mediaite's Charlie Nash described it. A dark fluid dripped down Rudy Giuliani's head during his Thursday press conference on behalf of the Trump campaign, prompting social media users to speculate what it could be. Giuliani, who was presenting evidence that widespread voter fraud led to President Donald Trump's defeat in the 2020 election, grew sweaty as he spoke alongside campaign lawyers Sidney Powell and Jenna Ellis. Then the mysterious dark fluid began to drip from the top of his head across his cheek. And here's how some of the reactions from Twitter. Adam Steinbaugh tweeted, Rudy Giuliani literally melting is a bit heavy on the metaphor. At Willie Garson, shared love of sweaty hair dye, sweaty Rudy Giuliani, and real Donald Trump. Just a couple sassy gals getting their hairs done. Timothy Burke, when you realize your Grecian formula is streaming down the side of your face in a crazed picture of Rudy Giuliani. John McCormack, how it ends, Giuliani is sweating badly and his hair dye is running down his cheeks. At Avinash. Rudy Giuliani's brain is crying from all the farce, sending dark, depressing tears from his temple. Adam Blickstein. Rudy Giuliani looks like he just opened the Ark of the Covenant. But the best tweet I saw, and I don't remember who wrote it, was Rudy Giuliani is so full of shit, it's leaking out of his head. And in the most bizarre moment of the press conference, and the whole thing was bizarre, Rudy Giuliani brought up My Cousin Vinny and made a complete fool of himself trying to legitimize Trump's lies in this bizarre press conference. Here's a little bit of that.
Witnesses we have for the way they were treated and not allowed to inspect the ballots. They weren't just not allowed to do it. They were pushed. A few cases they were assaulted. In all cases, they were put in a corral.
Corral?
So far away, probably the closest they got is from here to the back of that room.
Oh, wow.
You could do like a, did you all watch My Cousin Vinny?
No, I haven't seen it.
The movie? It's one of my favorite law movies.
Oh, it's getting weird.
It comes from Brooklyn.
Getting weird.
When the nice lady who said she saw, and then he says to her, how many fingers do I got up?
Oh, no.
And she says,
voices.
3. Well, she was too far away to see it was only 2.
But
these people were further away than My Cousin Vinny was from the witness.
They were further.
They couldn't see a thing.
They were further away than My Cousin Vinny was to the witness. That was a movie. That was a movie. Somebody. What's happening? What happened? What just happened? I think now it's easy to understand why he was leaking. He was an absolute nervous wreck. And what was Donald Trump and his supporters, what were they thinking when they saw that, quote, performance? Absolutely insane. And by the way, this is good. Somebody dug this clip up I saw it on Twitter when I was looking for sound for today's show. And here is Joe Biden from, this must be 2007, at one of the Democratic debates. He's on stage with Hillary Clinton and John Edwards. Remember him? Here is Joe Biden from 2007 shitting on Rudy Giuliani.
And the irony is Rudy Giuliani, probably the most underqualified man since George Bush to seek the presidency, is here talking about any of the people here. Rudy Giuliani. I mean, think about it. Rudy Giuliani, there's only 3 things he mentioned in a sentence, a noun and a verb and 9/11. I mean, there's nothing else. There's nothing else. And I mean it sincerely. He is genuinely not qualified to be president.
All right, that is Joe Biden in 2007 in his second presidential campaign. Well, guess what? Third time's a charm. He is now the president-elect, of course. But that didn't stop Sidney Powell, the other one of the 3 lawyers of President Trump's on his election legal team. And I mean, all the whatever, quote, legitimate lawyers are all gone. Now we just got these conspiracy theorists and TV lawyers. Anyway, Sidney Powell also represented former National Security Advisor Michael T. Flynn. Remember him, Flynn? He's not gone. She's been a major source and promoter of viral conspiracy theories about vote switching. Since the election, the New York Times writes, Sidney Powell has advanced claims of voluminous voter fraud and rigged election. She falsely claimed that a supercomputer called Hammer hacked votes, that Mr. Trump won the election by millions of votes, and that voting software company Dominion Voting System altered the tallies. And last week, she promised that coming evidence would soon overturn the election's results. And she would, quote, release the Kraken, a reference to the 1981 movie The Clash of the Titans, reprising a catchphrase that began trending on Twitter. That's the New York Times. Well, here is a little bit of sound from this whack job, Sidney Powell, at the press conference yesterday.
This is stunning, heartbreaking, infuriating, and the most unpatriotic acts I can even imagine for people in this country to have participated in any way, shape, or form.
I have a question. Are they more or less unpatriotic than the President of the United States blackmailing a foreign leader to find dirt or at least announce an investigation on his opponent, former senator and vice president of the United States? Are they more or less patriotic than that? Sorry, you're not going to answer my question? You're going to keep talking? Okay, go ahead.
And I want the American public to know right now that we will not be intimidated. American patriots are fed up with the corruption from the local level to the highest level of our government, and we are going to take this country back. We are not going to be intimidated. We are not going to back down. We are going to clean this mess up now. President Trump won by a landslide. We are going to prove it, and we are going to reclaim the United States of America for the people who vote for freedom.
What does that even mean, for the people who vote for freedom? And by the way, no matter how you measure or define corruption, there is no single politician who has ever been guilty of or conducted more corruption, especially in such a short period of time. There's a lot of people that work in Washington, state capitals, all over the country for years and don't do as many horrific things as Donald Trump did. He is the single most corrupt politician America's ever seen, and I will fight you for any other name that you would give. Go ahead. Tell me who you think. You got nobody. It's him. Anyway, a very stunning thing happened last night, and I'm serious. Last night on Fox News, Tucker Carlson, who is the most watched person in all of TV cable news, I think. I don't know if he's the most influential. I'd give that to Hannity. But Tucker Carlson went right on the record about this woman, Sidney Powell, and the fact that he doesn't believe her and she doesn't have any evidence, and he's asked for it. And, well, I hate to play a white supremacist on the podcast, but this matters. Tucker Carlson matters. Here it is.
We took Sidney Powell seriously. We had no intention of fighting with her. We've always respected her work. We simply wanted to see the details. How could you not want to see them? So we invited Sidney Powell on the show. We would have given her the whole hour. We would have given her the entire week, actually, and listened quietly the whole time at rapt attention. That's a big story. But she never sent us any evidence, despite a lot of requests, polite requests, not a page. When we kept pressing, she got angry and told us to stop contacting her. When we checked with others around the Trump campaign, people in positions of authority, they told us Powell has never given them any evidence either, nor did she provide any today at the press conference. Powell did say that electronic voting is dangerous, and she's right. We're with her there. But she never demonstrated that a single actual vote was moved illegitimately by software from one candidate to another. Not one. So why are we telling you this? We're telling you this because it's true. And in the end, that's all that matters, the truth. It's our only hope. It's our best defense. And it's how we're different from them. We care what's true, and we know you care too. That's why we told you. Maybe Sidney Powell will come forward soon with details on exactly how this happened and precisely who did it. Maybe she will. We are certainly hopeful that she will. What happened with the vote counting this month, and at the polling places in Detroit, and the polling places in Philadelphia, and so much else, actually matters. It matters no matter who you voted for. It matters whether or not you think this election is already over. Until we know the answers to those questions conclusively and we can agree on them, this country will not be united.
And as long as your TV show is on every night, this country will not be united either, because you make millions of dollars dividing people every day, you awful hack. Anyway, what he said is pretty important, I think. They have no evidence to overturn this election. You're not going to see any. By the way, Chris Krebs, the election security guy from the Department of Homeland Security that Trump just fired, tweeted, that press conference was the most dangerous hour and 45 minutes of television in American history, and possibly the craziest. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're lucky. Ezra Klein tweeted today, Trump said he would do this if he lost in 2016. He said he would do this if he lost in 2020. There is nothing here that wasn't predictable and predicted. The only thing we didn't know was how much of the Republican Party would fall in line. Now, sadly, we know only 2 Republicans have come out and said that this election is over and that Joe Biden has become the president-elect. Where are the other 50? And by the way, here's another old clip of Joe Biden saying the same thing as Ezra Klein said in that tweet. Joe Biden on The Daily Show this summer.
It's my greatest concern, my single greatest concern. This president's going to try to steal this election. This is a guy who said that all mail-in ballots are fraudulent, voting by mail, while he sits behind the desk in the Oval Office and writes his mail-in ballot to vote in the primary. This is a guy, you have 23, I believe it is, states have passed over 82 pieces of legislation making it harder for people to vote. Harder. That's why we're putting together a major initiative of lawyers to go out and make sure that we're in every single district in the country to patrol this. We need, if I'm president, and this is what their worries, if I'm president, we're going to have same-day registration. The report was in Pennsylvania, they were still counting votes. We may not know, quote, this is the sort of implicit threat. We might not know who won Pennsylvania in a general election until a month after the election.
How about that? Joe Biden being prescient and cautious. He wasn't too far off, was he? That's Joe Biden on The Daily Show with Trevor Noah this past summer. And now let's bring it to today, where the president-elect had a press conference answering several different questions, and I just grabbed a couple clips from that for you because I thought it'd be really important and relevant to give you context and show you this man's character. Here he is talking about the horror of the pandemic and the spikes it's now seen.
The country is still in a crisis, and there's a dark winter still ahead. Yesterday, America reached another tragic milestone, 250,000 deaths. 250,000 people died due to COVID-19. And there are empty chairs and dining room tables were filled just days and weeks ago with loved ones, family, friends who laughed and talked together. To those families and friends that are left behind, Jill and I send our love and our prayers. We know, like many of you do, how tough it is to find purpose in the memory of a loved one you've just lost. It'll take time, but you'll find it. You'll find it.
Powerful words coming from a man who has, in fact, suffered tremendous loss like almost nobody has. And here he is being asked a question by a great reporter, award-winning reporter who I know and have a great deal of respect for, Yamiche Alcindor. I think she's now at PBS, asking Joe Biden a question at the press conference that he held at the speech and press conference that he held on Thursday.
Which is, what do you make of the fact that the president is having these calls with Michigan county officials amid his bid to overturn the election? He's going to be having also Michigan Republican legislators at the White House tomorrow. Is anything that he's doing making you rethink your strategy? I know you say that you don't want to have legal action right now. And what do you say to Americans, especially immigrant Americans who came to the United States looking for political stability and seeing all the things that the president is doing?
Hang on, I'm on my way. That's what I say to them, not a joke. And what the president's doing now is really it's going to be another incident where he will go down in history as being one of the most irresponsible presidents in American history. It's just out of the, not even within the norm at all. There's questions whether it's even legal. But it's going to be interesting to see who shows up in this call to meet with the leadership. And this is going to, we've won Michigan. It's going to be certified. We're going to end up making clear that they are, making clear that we won. And but it just, it's hard to fathom how this man thinks.
Exactly.
It's hard to fathom. I'm confident he knows he hasn't won, he's not going to be able to win, and we're going to be sworn in on January 20th. And I just, but far from me to question his motive, it's just outrageous what he's doing.
But as he ups the things that he's doing, calling officials, is it making you rethink your strategy at all? Is there anything that he would be doing that would make you say, okay, we really have to go to court now? Or are you still watching what he's doing and saying we can still kind of wait and see what happens?
I'm not going to rule anything out or anything in. But at the moment, the strategy is not changing.
Yamiche Alcindor talking to Vice President-elect Joe Biden yesterday, and I just like the way that he took his time and chose his words as wisely as he could. And I really appreciated his the way that he said, I can't fathom how he thinks, because I think we all struggle with that. We've never met anybody like that thinks the way that he thinks, who is a sociopath like that. I think most of us, unless you specialize in sociopaths in the mental health system, most of us don't know anybody like that, don't know anybody that thinks like that, and have a hard time understanding how someone could. And I think that's what Vice President-elect or President-elect Joe Biden was trying to articulate there. And there was another press conference, important press conference that was held yesterday. This one was at the White House. It was the Coronavirus Task Force having a press conference led by Vice President and man without a soul, Mike Pence. And at the end of it, Mike Pence didn't take any questions. Can you imagine? Where has Mike Pence been? The president is challenging the election in the most bizarre conspiratorial way, and the country is having its worst spike since the pandemic began, and Mike Pence isn't going to take questions? Outrageous. Listen.
Thank you. All of you need to answer this.
Why is the federal
What is going on? And you're not working with the transition. You're all part of not recognizing democracy. You're all undermining the democratic election. Every one of you.
Why is the federal
And you won't work with the transition.
I'm not sure that guy was really yelling a question as much as he was scolding them and accusing them of working to undermine democracy. All of them. Was it Brian Karem? I don't know who that was. I want to find out who that was. Okay, and finally, this is a kind of an uplifting and an inspiring clip, if not soundbite, if not just a public health warning coming from someone who has garnered a tremendous amount of respect over, well, I don't know, a lot of years now, as she has hosted 9 o'clock hour on MSNBC. Rachel Maddow has been absent for a couple weeks, saying someone close to her that she has come down with COVID. There was a lot of suspicion that it was her longtime partner, Susan. She came out and confirmed that on her show last night and sounded the alarms and raised the warnings about how serious this is. And it was so heartfelt and so genuine. And I wanted to share as much of it as I could, just a couple of minutes here. Rachel Maddow last night.
As I was saying, I'm in love. And Susan really is the center of my universe. And the way that I think about it is not that she is the sun and I'm a planet that orbits her. That would give too much credit to the other planets. It is, I think of it as a much more pitiful thing that she is the planet and I am a satellite. And I'm up there sort of beeping at her and blinking my lights and just trying to make her happy. She really is. I'm just lucky. I'm one of the lucky people on this earth who has a life like that. She is the center of my life. She's the organizing principle of my life. My relationship with Susan is the only thing at the end of the day that I would kill or die for without hesitation. And Susan has been sick with COVID these past couple of weeks. And at one point, we really thought that there was a possibility that it might kill her. And that's why I've been away. Susan tested positive 2 weeks ago. We separated from each other that day because I tested negative that day. She tested positive. So she and I have both been alone since then. While we have, I've continued to test. I've stayed negative. And she has not only been positive over this time, she's gotten sicker and sicker while I tried to care for her while still staying physically apart from her. And the bottom line is that she's going to be fine. She is recovering. She's still sick, but she's going to be okay. And we're not scared anymore like we were. But it really didn't feel like it was going okay at the outset. And I mean, like I'm sure, warts and all, right? I'm willing to show you all of this. I don't know you at home except through this medium, but just believe me, whatever you have calculated into your life as acceptable risk, as, inevitable risk, something that you're willing to go through in terms of this virus, because statistically, hey, probably it will be fine for you and your loved ones. I'm just here to tell you to recalibrate that. Frankly, the country needs you to recalibrate that because, broadly speaking, there's no room for you in the hospital anymore. And so we've got more people in the hospital right now than we've had since the beginning of this epidemic. It's gone up 50% in 2 weeks. right? There isn't room for you in the hospital anymore, broadly speaking. So for the sake of your country, you really can't get sick and need to go to the hospital right now. And the only way to ensure that is to ensure that you do not get infected. But please just also know that whatever you think of your own life and however much risk you are willing to take on for yourself, that's not how this works. What you need to know is that whoever is the most important person in your life, whoever you most love and most care for and most cherish in the world, that's the person who you may lose, or who you may spend weeks up all night freaking out about and calling doctors all over the place and over again all night long, trying to figure out how to keep that person breathing and out of the hospital. Just don't, whatever you're doing, however you've calibrated risk in your life, don't get this thing. Do whatever you can to keep from getting it. For Thanksgiving next week, you really are going to have to just have it at home without people coming over. And yeah, that's going to suck, but that is going to suck so much less than you or somebody in your family getting this and getting sick. Trust me. And I think I know you well enough, because I know me well enough. I'm guessing that you might be willing to risk yourself, right? Especially after all these months and all this time. It's so frustrating, right? I would have done anything. I would have moved mountains for it to have been me who was sick these past couple of weeks instead of Susan. I still would give anything for that. But this thing does not give you that choice. You can't say, I'm willing to just get it myself and play the odds. You don't get that choice. It won't necessarily be you. It'll be the person you most care about in the world. And how can you bear that? And all you can do to stop that is move heaven and earth to not get it and to not transmit it. It is just, again, I'm not going to go on about this at further length. I will just tell you personally, this thing is scary as hell. And whatever you've been willing to do to risk getting it, don't do it.
Well done, Rachel Maddow. I thought that was fantastic, and she deserves a lot of respect for being very transparent and sharing what was going on with her personal life, which she doesn't do a lot of on her show. And I think that was an important commentary and really timely as we go into what Vice President Joe Biden, you heard say, called the dark winter. I think that's probably a pretty good way to describe where we're at and what we're about to be in. And so I wanted to share that with you as well, and I hope that you'll share that with friends and family members who are still thinking maybe we should get together, maybe we should hang out over the holidays and travel across the country or wherever. Okay, so let's get to my first guest on today's show. He is the Friday regular, the only regular, really consistent guest here, and I love talking to him and people. He's one of your all-time favorites. He is a hilarious comedian, but he's such a smart, thoughtful, articulate guy who has such a unique, I think, way of explaining things. He doesn't pull his punches, his phrasing, his vocabulary, everything. I love talking to Christian Finnegan. You might know him from being one of the original panelists on VH1's Best Week Ever. He was on a very famous sketch on Comedy Central's The Chappelle Show. He's had his own special, Comedy Central Presents stand-up comedy special, and several albums. He's on Twitter, where he's awesome, at Christ Finnegan, and he joins me almost every Friday. Here he is, Christian Finnegan, right now. Here he is, everybody's favorite regular guest, Christian Finnegan. So much positive feedback. Everybody loves when we talk. Thank you for joining me, as always, buddy.
You have a very nice group of listeners, Peter.
They've been emailing me and tweeting. I try to send you all that stuff so you know how much you appreciate it here. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I do want to start with the fact that you're wearing a vintage Proud Boys collared shirt, and I'm wondering, it is.
Like it because I'm in a dark room.
You're a Proud Boy.
Blue and
Proud Boy.
Green.
Explain yourself.
Yes, it is the general look of a Proud Boy shirt.
Proud
which
Boy.
is a bummer because I think Fred Perry shirts are quite nice.
Is that what they are? Are they? Is the Proud Boys take over a certain brand of shirt that's legit?
Yeah.
Oh
Fred
wow.
Perry.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. I wonder, is that a company that is aware of how it's been used?
Yeah, and they seem to, because it's funny. I actually literally Googled that a week ago during the stupid MAGA march thing. And
100 MAGA march.
The dozens MAGA march. They seem to be upset and bothered by the fact that the Proud Boys have adopted this. And apparently the founder of Fred Perry was a communist. It was a British communist.
Oh wow.
Or a socialist, or but a very far left dude, or but apparently they're not into it. But I couldn't find anything that explicitly said like, hey, cut the shit. It seems like if Fred Perry wanted to, they could start an ad campaign with just like dudes making out and, really sort of recapture the brand for themselves. But so I don't know whether it's just kind of like, hey, sales are sales.
Yeah, they could mark.
We don't like the Proud Boys, but money's money. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, like LGBT Twitter took over that hashtag Proud Boys, right, a couple weeks ago, and they could market themselves so well to the LGBT and supporting community because they are cool shirts.
Yeah, it's a bummer because as most white dudes in their 40s, I also would often be wearing New Balance shoes, and those are like
oh really?
Yeah,
that's who got those?
Alt-right.
Really?
At least they were a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Oh wow! And now Hawaiian shirts too with the Boogaloo Boys. They got that.
Yeah,
there's some clever.
I think we've talked about this before on the podcast, but the Boogaloo thing bothers me so much.
Why? I don't think we have
reasons. But for a reason that's probably different than it bothers other people. Because do you know the whole story about how that term came about?
I don't think I know the story, the origin of the.
Well, basically, it's all based on the idea that trying to incite a second civil war, and so it became kind of a term where they would say Civil War II Electric Boogaloo.
Big joke, wow! Oh, that's
which is
super clever,
lamest, corniest, unfunny office person joke in the world to still making Electric Boogaloo jokes. That is the stupidest, corniest line, and that bothers me almost as much as the racism.
Well, it doesn't. It's a weird thing to also go from Civil War II, like you're promoting a civil war, which is a horrific kind of conflict, and then tying it to the only thing that rhymes with it. And so there's no.
Well, but that's kind of been their whole approach to things, is sort of that implied irony that, like, we may be joking, you can't call me on it because it's a big joke. It's Electric Boogaloo, right? We're making a joke. And then from Boogaloo, it became Big Igloo. And so people would talk about Big Igloo on these message boards.
Right.
And then Big Luau. And so that's what the Hawaiian shirts came from, because from as a sort of mnemonic tangent, Big Luau became something that would be used on these message boards. So that's why they started wearing Hawaiian shirts.
Speaking of last weekend's MAGA, the convention, whatever, the Donald Trump supporters, was this all over the country? It was really only in Washington, D.C., and there were a lot of fights that were caught on video. And I guess my question to you is, did you ever, growing up in high school or college, know guys who would say, let's go out tonight and fight. Let's start fights, because it's a guy thing. And it's all I saw. That's what I saw. It was that's what that whole movement is. Those guys are simply guys that love to drink and fight, the Proud Boys and their ilk,
creating some philosophical pretext surrounding it. But yeah, for the most part, it's guys who wanted to be in a fraternity but couldn't get into college.
Yeah, they're with. Well, they are in a fraternity now, kind of. I mean, that's exactly
honestly,
what it is.
That's not even a joke. They
right.
actually refer to themselves as the fraternity, and it's guys who saw Old School and thought that looks cool.
Yeah,
and but yeah, I mean, the idea, to a certain degree, I understand it. I mean, there's not a lot of avenues for male camaraderie. And I blame dudes like that. I'm not, but there's not, guys sort of need a reason to get together and hang out, especially as they get older. It's, and sports tends to fill that void a lot. Hey, let's get together, watch the game, et cetera, or go to a bar. And I think that, the internet has inspired a lot of people who didn't necessarily know that they had a community in the past to sort of find like-minded people.
Yep, all over the country.
that has positive manifestations and negative manifestations.
Yeah, because there's any number of different types of groups that you could belong to as a guy. But a lot of them, unfortunately, or enough of them, join these horrific racist, sexist, incel, the anti-government groups.
But they have to have some sort of pretext to it, because they can't just say, you know what, I'm really kind of lonely.
Right.
I'd like to be around some fellas.
I don't think they would ever even realize, they're not self-aware enough to know that that's why they're doing it a lot of times. Yeah. And that's not always why, but I think it's a huge part of it as to why. So let me ask you, yesterday I said something on the podcast, and it was I never felt this way, and I've never said anything like this publicly, and then I tweeted it last night, and I really wanted to talk with you and get your reaction to this. But basically, what happened with the Wayne County, Michigan electors the other night, when these two Republicans were going to try to not validate a whole, like, hundreds of thousands of specifically black voters in Detroit's votes. If what I said was, Christian, if they had done that, if they had been successful and not counting those votes, I would have supported violence, a violent uprising of some sort. I would have had no problem with it. I would have supported it. I don't know that I would have gotten involved with it or where it would have, but I would have been okay with it. And I've always been against violence. I've never condoned violence of almost any kind except the obvious kind, like self-defense, protecting your family, whatever. Not even protecting your property. I'm like, oh, take my shit. I'm not going to be violent over it. It's not ego. But I am really shocked by my reaction. I've never felt this way. And I'm also shocked by a lot of people who are like, yeah, it's not that abnormal. And we understand. What do you think about people like having their votes deleted and having a violent uprising as a result? What would that be like? What other reason is there to be violent?
You know, I remember thinking when Trump got elected, I think right after the Muslim ban, like very early on, and I remember saying to somebody, part of me is worried that there's going to be blood in the streets, and part of me is worried there's not going to be blood in the streets, you know, and that's sometimes how I feel about these two situations. I think it's a dangerous road to go down mentally.
Sure.
First of all, because it's literally what they want. When I say they, I'm talking about the militia dudes. These are guys who they're complete fucking losers, but in a sort of Mad Max reality, they see that as their path to glory. You know, and I think it's important to not let yourself get tempted down that road. Because I think, first of all, like I said, it's what they want. Secondly, it doesn't really come natural to quote unquote liberals. And when I'm not talking about the sort of fire starters on the extreme, I wouldn't even call them leftists. They're just chaos agents, you know, like sort of anarchists, quote unquote. You know, the kind of guys who showed up to fight the Proud Boys at the rally. It's like, what are you doing? Like, what are you expecting? Like, what are you expecting to accomplish
fight
by showing up to their
probably just fighting?
Yeah, I mean, there is something resembling a horseshoe theory there. But I think that we will snap to very quickly, and they won't. Do you know what I mean? That it's like you don't want to get into a violent altercation with somebody who's desperate for a violent altercation.
Well said.
At the same time, and I'll argue against myself, that, well, what's the answer then? I don't know, because somebody has to back down at some point, and it can't always be us. You know, the problem, you know, I know it's really corny to sort of split the world into a binary. It's like there's this type of person, there's that type of person. It's
great for ratings.
Huh?
It's great for ratings.
It's great ratings. But I do often think that there are head people and gut people. And everyone's a mixture of those two, you know, in terms of what you act on, your sort of gut impulses and your sort of reasoned logical impulses. We're all a mixture of the two. But there's people, I think, who trust their head more, and there are people who trust their gut more. The problem is that if you are a head person, you understand that at a certain point, being a head person has its limitations, that gut people are needed at times. If you're fighting a war on the battlefield, you need to act on your gut, and you need people who are going to act on their gut. You can't have, it can't all be cerebral. You have to have people who just act on impulse. The people who are gut people don't see a point of head people. Do you know what I mean?
I do. It's fascinating. Yeah, go ahead.
So I mean, we get trapped, and when I say head people, that's not a compliment necessarily. I'm just saying it's a
character trait,
orientation.
Right, sure.
We as head people can fall into that trap sometimes of trying to imitate gut people, but we're never going to be gut people. And I think when we try to outdo them on their terms, we lose. But I don't know what the answer is, because when somebody wants to punch you in the face, sort of being like, well, let me reason this out with you, that doesn't work either.
Well,
clearly.
That's really it's a tough situation to be in, because it would seem, taking it outside of just, the paradigm of violence and talking about politics and elections, it would seem that we want to have fair elections and let the person who, gets the most votes win, and they want to cheat. So we keep playing by the rules, and we lose a lot because they have the system set up so that they can win, and they cheat a lot. Now, of course, they're pointing to Democrats cheating, but we keep losing because they cheat to win, and there's a lot of people that are fine with that. I feel like that falls into a similar kind of a paradigm in terms of the thinking with progressive-minded Democrats.
Well, yeah, I mean, the motivation for one side is to be correct, to be right, to be, to reveal the truth. The goal on the other side is to win. Period. And that's it. And I don't think that people have accepted how much winning is the beginning, middle, and end of the philosophy. That's it. It's not about lower
policy.
Taxes.
It's not about policy.
It's literally about winning. We win, you lose. That's it. I win, you lose. Fuck you. I win, you lose. And that has worked because people aren't used to just. There's always been an element of that in the Republican Party and sort of conservatives writ large, of sort of that will to power authoritarian mindset. But the thing that I keep going back to, back in the 2016 primary, Trump had said something, he tweeted something to the effect of, Republicans don't know how to win anymore. I will show them. And he's right in the sense, what he really meant is, you cheat. That's how you win. You fucking idiots. You keep getting hung up. You're missing the secret sauce. The secret sauce is you lie and you cheat and you win. And you win and you win and you don't stop cheating until you win.
But taking it outside, I was just thinking about this too, but taking outside of cheating, the other way to win, and unfortunately it's effective, I was just thinking about this, is how he behaves. Unfortunately, it works. During the Republican primaries in 2016, he had a nickname for everybody: Marco Rubio, George Bush, Jeb Bush, Carly Fiorina, everybody, the moderators. He called people names. And again, most Republicans didn't do that. Democrats don't do that. It doesn't seem mature or adult for anybody ever to do that as adults. He did it, and it works. It brands people. It's a way to win, is branding people as sleepy or low energy or little. It doesn't always work, but why not? Why not? And I think that that's just one example. Maybe there are many other examples of a certain type of behavior that's not cheating. It's just you would never expect any politician to do such a thing, to name call like that.
As we've discussed, like, he has no gag reflex.
No shame.
Morally, no shame whatsoever.
Yeah, right.
And you can't fake that. People, right. Normal people, even evil people, your Ted Cruz's of the world.
Yeah.
They will, if they get caught in a lie, even if they quickly catch themselves and then double down on that lie, there's something physical that happens to people when they get busted for being full of shit. They have a physical reaction, and you can see it on their faces.
Most people,
and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trump, he's impervious to that because he's missing that chip. He's missing it. He just doesn't have it. And, and he has shown a lot of these Republicans oh, all these rules that we thought we had to, adhere to. I might have even said this to you in the past. You've seen Blazing Saddles, I assume.
I don't think I've ever seen Blazing Saddles. I'm so sorry.
There's this group of like a posse that's going to come through and destroy the town. And so one of the climactic scenes, spoiler alert, is they quickly build a fake town, like just flat 2-dimensional buildings and then they sucker the posse to come in to destroy the town. Then they realize that it's just basically flats with 2x4s holding them in place.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's like the Republicans sort of showed up. Trump sort of showed them. It's like, oh, these buildings you think are solid, you can just push them over. There's nothing behind them.
Well,
there's no foundation behind them.
It doesn't have to be a metaphor if you think about that. Like a certain 2-mile expanse of the wall that he built that fell over. It's like not good. Wasn't well constructed.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, it's I will say I've been a little concerned today. Not about Trump specifically, but just the fervor with which 40% of this country is looking for any rationale to justify the things that they actually would at least sit by and let be done, even if they're not going to go out in the streets with long guns themselves.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in this country that are willing to sit back and watch it on TV and
What was it that made you, was there an article, a tweet, something that made you get a little bit worried? Because I read something today about how there's more reporting on the Michigan plot to capture the governor and that they were going to have public executions. And I'm like, okay, so just to be completely clear, these Michigan guys are no better than ISIS. Not at all. They were going to just execute politicians. I mean, they're really dumb, but they were considering it. That's how bad it has gotten for, hopefully it's a very small percentage of people. But
I guess for me, the thing that scares me is not so much that plot was uncovered, even as horrific as it is that it won't make a difference. That's the thing, that even people who aren't going to participate in public executions in the Michigan Capitol are just kind of like, yeah, well, they lie too. Well, the Democrats are liars.
I think it makes a difference from the standpoint
that they don't even accept how horrific that is.
I think it does make a difference from the standpoint of people who might be considering similar plots, knowing that the FBI is interested in stopping them and will try to stop them if they can. So I think from that standpoint, it matters that they caught him and that they made it very public and that those guys are all
absolutely
going to go to jail.
What I'm saying though is that it's the good Germans that scare me more than the Nazis.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, good point. So let's switch gears and talk about where we're at with the pandemic. Here was the headline at
enough of this light stuff. Let's get serious.
Let's get serious and talk more about horrific death. The banner at Drudge today: CDC, no travel, pandemic worse than ever, testing strained, hospitals buckle, New York City on brink, death in Europe every 17 seconds. It's the worst it's been, the pandemic, by I think every metric you can come up with, and we're okay with it. Seemingly a lot of people aren't going to change any behavior. You are seeing some Republican governors making moves, but people are pissed now at the Democratic governor, Andrew Cuomo, which, there's plenty to be pissed about. But I think it's fair to say that there's a lot of hard calls that are being made by state governments.
Making them poorly, but yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, he's been a disaster lately, I think. When he reprimanded those reporters yesterday.
It was absurd. It was absurd.
It was exactly like Donald Trump.
Disgusting, yeah.
Exactly like Donald Trump. He was doing that because he can now. He never would have done that if Donald Trump had done it first, is my opinion. He lowered himself, Andrew Cuomo.
In moments of insecurity, when he feels that he's on the ropes, that I'll slap down these fucking reporters because nobody likes them. So they're that's an easy go-to.
Yep. And it was terrible because the reporters were asking fundamentally sound, completely normal questions we totally expect them to ask. So the point is, things are worse than they've been, and a lot of Americans are less concerned than they've been. I think obviously a lot of us are really concerned and are doubling down and doing whatever we can. And we're not planning to travel, obviously, for Thanksgiving, get together with people. But what are your thoughts on where we're at right now with how many days left before Donald Trump is gone and him not paying any attention to it? His task force came out, I guess, publicly and met today. And we heard from Fauci today. He was there. But what are your thoughts on where we're at right now as a nation with the pandemic?
And that's what's so hilarious about Trump is that you would think if he's arguing that he's president, he deserves to stay in office and that he's been elected for another 4 years, you think that some sort of passing gesture to doing the job of, presidenting would appeal to him on some level, to show the country that not only did I win, I'm on top of this, but he can't even mention. I mean, the only time he even mentions coronavirus is to sort of try to take credit for vaccines that are produced by private companies. It's absurd to me that you could be arguing. Let's just say let's say his voter fraud claims were legit. Of course, they're absurd, but let's say they were legit, or there was some confusion as to what the result of the election actually was. You think that it would probably work in your favor to be seen as a credible, proactive president taking things seriously. That he had time to invite some. I haven't read too much about this yet, but apparently he met with some Michigan lawmakers.
Yep, he called
the two canvassers who didn't want to certify the Wayne County results.
Mm-hmm.
You have time for that, but you don't have time to sit in on the first coronavirus task force meeting in literal months, or to even make an appearance. It's just whatever. It's absurd. And I know people get really exhausted, even in New York City, where people tend to take it more seriously than other parts of the country. There is an exhaustion level. And I think people are kind of understanding that people have to buckle down again.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a lot of people who subconsciously are like, just let us get the holidays, please.
Yeah.
Like January's January. I'll stay in my house because that's, what the hell do I want to do in January and February anyway? But can you please just give me this? Give me Thanksgiving to Christmas. I think that's psychologically kind of.
And by give me that, mean let me have this in a normal way. Let me celebrate this.
Something resembling normal. I mean, even people in New York City, I'm saying even people who are very sympathetic to the, what needs to be done in terms of lockdowns. There is this sort of overwhelming vibe of like, come on, man, I know it's bad, but just give me, it's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas. Let me see my dad. Let me see my mom. Let us have this feeling of normalcy. We were talking before we got online about, I was reading an article in the Washington Post just about how the holidays are being handled in New York City between the tree lighting and the Macy's Day Parade and all those things. And in addition to being kind of tourist trap, silly, when are you going to go to the Macy's Day Parade, you cornball? There is a feeling of structure that those sort of civic annual events in at least I'm sure it happens in every town all over, the 4th of July fireworks, things like that, that are how you sort of mark your year. They're how you mark your life. And they almost create like bumpers, like, for when kids go bowling and they put the bumpers in the gutters to keep the ball on track, that you sort of need these events, these sort of psychological bumpers to keep yourself mentally on track, because without them, then it's just despair. And so, I mean, the bottom line is suck it up, tough shit. We'll get through it.
Right.
We'll do it all.
Right.
We'll all have it next year. If we act responsible now, we can have all these things next year.
Yep.
But I am sympathetic to the resistance on a sort of cellular level, but at the same time, grow the fuck up.
Yeah. Yeah. What else? What's a pop culture thing we could talk about? What have you been paying attention to this week? Anything that I don't know about? I mean, I'm, as you know, obsessed with TikTok star Charli D'Amelio, because
you can't stop talking about it.
My daughters are awkward, TikTok people. Well, I don't know what to tell in the middle of the night, but What are you paying attention? What are you following? What are you affected by? What are you thinking about this week?
I was not a huge fan of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Like that was a little bit after me, time wise. Like it was. When
I liked
popular, it was like when I was in high school and college. I didn't really watch TV as much then. But they had that big reunion, I guess, and you know, the woman who played Aunt Viv was replaced after season 3. And I was reading an article where I guess she confronts Will Smith as sort of like, you're the one who fucking ruined my life. Because I guess she was having contact disputes and she had some personal issues that weren't really relevant at the time. But I guess Will Smith, even as a 21-year-old, he was the big man on campus there. It's his show, and really kind of made it tougher on her. And she kind of blames him for ruining her life.
Wow.
So I mean, I that's literally what I was reading 20 minutes for.
Can you tell me how what is happening in television and film in terms of production? Are we still watching things that were filmed before the pandemic, or am I watching certain shows that have been produced, shot during the pandemic?
I think there's a very easy way to answer those questions. Are you seeing crowd scenes or are you not? You know,
so that's what they
are being filmed right now. Rhea Seehorn, who is a fantastic actress who's on Better Call Saul, she just tweeted that she and Jim Gaffigan have been shooting a movie for the past that's going to be coming out, and she had tweeted something effective: "Look who I've been bubbling with for the past few months." Because I think all these productions, if you're gonna, the productions are happening, but they happen in bubbles, obviously. And I think that the kinds of stories and movies and TV shows that are being shot are probably things that don't involve, they're not Kurosawa movies. They're not casts of thousands. They're 3 people alone in a room. And so I think that over the next year, you're going to see just a preponderance of movies and TV shows that for some reason take place like Castaway or things like that just don't require large numbers of people.
That's a really interesting observation. Yeah. Also, what about the I just saw that Wonder Woman, the new Wonder Woman movie, I think it's called like 1984 or something.
1984, yeah.
Is going to be released on HBO Max or on demand. I guess in some theaters in December. They keep postponing its release. But what's wrong with if you don't care about the movie theater industry, do studios lose that much more money when they put things immediately on demand?
I think they do.
They do because they make so much money at the actual box office, charging $15 a ticket.
Think about you and your wife and your 2 daughters are going to watch Wonder Woman 84
in the theater. We're all paying.
You're
between $10 and $20
just off the bat, almost $60.
Right.
That you're paying to that movie.
Well, we wouldn't bring my one daughter. Probably. We probably wouldn't bring my one daughter.
Okay.
We don't bring her out.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I'm joking. Yeah.
When my younger brother went to see Home Alone 8 times in the theater, like he was right in that wheelhouse. He was 8 years younger than me, and he was right smack dab in that movie's wheelhouse. And so he saw that movie 8 times, and each time he saw that movie, he brought my dad. I think my dad saw it with him 4 times, my mom probably twice, and friends or whatever. And so when I think about just how much money that movie made off one kid,
right?
That you start to realize exponentially, like, oh, this is why.
So does that mean
it's expensive?
That studios will only produce films that have lower budgets because the overhead? Why do it if it's not going to make that much money? Is that what we're seeing in TV and film?
I suspect, and I don't know this, I'm not an expert, and I'm sure I could probably Google and find out if I'm right, that there probably aren't a ton of blockbuster movies being made right now, period.
Right.
I actually bet that there's probably not a lot of movies being made because movies in general have been gearing, at least cinematic movies that play in multiplexes, have been moving towards spectacle and giant casts and things like that for years because they have to play in China. They have to, and all of the sort of adult sort of thrillers, sort of Denzel Washington movies or Harrison Ford movies, like the, Presumed Innocent and things like that. That stuff is all kind of moved to television. You could say that peak TV really happened because a lot of that stuff would have been movies back in the 80s and 90s, but that stuff started not really making it, as film companies got bigger and bigger, and budgets went up, and they wanted these massive foreign paydays, they had no interest in sort of a talky movie anymore. And so that stuff all started filtering down to HBO, which is what created what we now know as peak TV. But so this, I don't know the answer, but my suspicion is that the pandemic is probably utterly wreaking havoc with major film productions, because there's just not, those are the movies that make money, the giant movies with 1,000 people in the cast.
I was watching
the Avengers movies, things like that.
Yeah. But I get the question originally comes from, I was started watching season 3 of The Crown on Netflix, and I was like, when did they shoot this? Like, there's crowds of people in that, and I mean, they must have shot it before the pandemic, but I feel like it just came out, and I'm like, we must be reaching a point where anything that was shot before the pandemic, almost all of it's out. Or I don't know.
Probably. You got to imagine it's getting pretty damn close. Yeah.
All right. Final question based on your brother seeing I said Full House.
Home Alone.
I don't know why I said Full House. Home Alone eight times in the theater. What is the film that you saw the most times in a theater? My answer is Ghostbusters original 4 times.
Boy, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I.
I thought this would be easy for you.
Multiple times.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know the answer. The last movie I actually know that I saw twice in the theater was Mad Max Fury Road.
The new one.
Because it's just, that movie is just unbelievably amazing. And that is a movie that I've watched it on TV as well, but in the theater, and it's a bigger deal. Boy, it had to be something stupid like Return of the Jedi or something like that would be my guess.
And
in terms of the movie I've seen the most, probably Beastmaster.
Oh, wow.
Do you remember that movie?
I don't.
Singer,
I don't.
John Amos. Only because in the very early days of cable, they only had about 5 movies that they would show. And so I would come home from school every day and put on, I don't know if it was HBO.
A 1982 sword and sorcery film.
Yeah. It's bad, but I've seen it a lot. And Barbie Benton is topless briefly in it, and that was very pivotal.
It's a big deal for you.
What I refer to as landmark boobs.
Why is it landmark?
When I think of like the boobs that like meant something to your shift to adulthood,
sure.
Do you know what I mean?
I do. I'm trying to think what mine was.
In Purple Rain, I consider landmark boobs. Probably the most universal landmark boobs would probably be Phoebe Cates in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Do you know what I mean? In terms of
I do, but I don't know those ones, and I'm trying to think of what mine is. And did something happen in Vacation? Did Chrissy Brinkley? We didn't see her breasts.
She didn't.
She got naked and jumped.
D'Angelo jumped into the pool naked at the end to try to win Clark back, which is a kind of a fucked up lesson that Clark is clearly a scumbag, and she's like, I better get naked and try to woo him.
He was.
No, but Chrissy Brinkley doesn't get naked in it.
I don't know what mine is. I'm gonna think of it as soon as we're done.
Like the Porky's shower.
Yeah.
Scene,
oh yeah. All those.
The sort of the things that like your friends talked about. Like, oh,
do you think that happens to young boys today because porn is so ubiquitous that it wouldn't be special to see it in a movie? I feel like that's gone.
I mean, I have to imagine that that's the case. I mean, I don't want to be like, these kids don't understand the value of a good boob anymore. But, when I was a kid, we had to turn the channel in between channels and see the boobs between the fuzz.
Such a difference now. I'm
sure it's different. I don't know if it's better or worse, but I'm sure it's a very different experience.
Man, I love talking to you. I look forward to Thursdays when we tape because I get to talk to you. Always fun, and I could keep going forever. Thank you very much, buddy.
As well, Pete.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, buddy.
Christian Finnegan, isn't he great? We went off the rails a little bit there at the end, but I thought that was funny too. Christian Finnegan, find him on Twitter and thank him for joining me at Christ Finnegan on the Twitter. Okay, now joining me, my second and final guest of the week here on Stand Up is an old friend of mine who is the co-creator of The Daily Show, ladies and gentlemen. She is a comedian. She is an activist. She is a writer. She co-founded and served as program director for Air America Radio. Her book, Lizz, Free or Die, from 2012, is a great collection of autobiographical essays on her life. In 2012, she founded Lady Parts Justice, which has now become the Abortion Access Force, Abortion Access Front. And she has a brand new comedy special coming out that's super original and unique. She taped back in September on the coast of a lake in Minnesota, where she is from and has been quarantined with her family. She invited 20 of her fans to join her from kayaks, and it's awesome. It's called Corona Borealis, and you can get it on Vimeo on demand right now, on Twitter at Lizz Winstead, on the Zoom machine from Minnesota. There she is, ladies and gentlemen, Lizz Winstead, one of my all-time favorite people. So glad to get you to join me. And most importantly, on this really important holiday, I didn't even realize it. I'm sure you want to say something to me, but it's International Men's Day when we're talking. What do you want to say to me about and me and other men?
Yeah, I'm just not feeling it this year.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'm just not, normally I'd be decorating and I'd be having a bunch of men over to celebrate them.
You have a dildo tree that you usually put up, I think.
I put up a dildo tree, and I just put up, kiss me under the misogyny toe. And this year, it's just with COVID and the shutdown. What I'm going to do is have a Zoom call with a bunch with Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk.
Oh, great.
And Alex Jones and Joe Rogan. And I'm just going to let them talk to me about me.
Did you tweet that Charlie Kirk looks like a guitar pick? Was that you?
Yes.
It's very funny.
Unsettling.
It's very funny.
His head is like a guitar pick. And I've seen like Charlie Kirk pops up in my feed. I try to avoid Charlie Kirk. But every time he pops up, I'm like, that is a fun strumming guitar pick of a head.
Why aren't you more considerate to the struggle of men, Lizz?
I really should be. It is my female supremacy. Just again, I feel like men are canceled far too often, and so I have to check into my own self and really remember that there's 364 other days that we celebrate men, and so
right.
It's important that on this day we really celebrate men. I apologize. I know I'm brutal.
We appreciate
be better.
We appreciate your acknowledgement about all of that. Thank you very much. Well, let's get into it. Obviously, I want to talk about your special this weekend. In a moment, we're going to talk a lot about that. I think it's so unique, so original. I'm so excited to watch the whole thing. I'm kind of like, I can't watch it ahead of time, right? There's no media copy. Like, that's how excited I am to watch this special. Is there
Dude, there's no media copy because I shot the second half of my special on Sunday and I'm editing it now. So, because I wanted to keep it as fresh to the minute as possible. So there is no media copy because there is no copy.
Awesome. I want to get totally into it. It's so exciting. Even exciting that usually it's not, I don't find it good to, in an interview, in a conversation like ours right now, to talk about something that you did. It's like, just watch it. But what you did is pretty interesting. And so I do want to talk about it. But you mentioned something about canceling. And I know I wanted to get to that with you. A lot of what has animated folks on the right in America is political correctness and what they refer to as cancel culture. And I wanted to get you ranting a little bit on your thoughts about that, as long as you wanted to, because I think it's actually important for progressives to try to understand what they mean by that and what they're thinking about it and what's actually happening and what's not happening. So I wanted to get your take on the idea of cancel culture and what you think that is and what it means and what they mean when they're talking about it.
I mean, I can't speak for anybody else. I can only speak for myself. But when I think about cancel culture, in the valid form of what somebody would refer to as cancel culture, what I would say is to lump all mistakes together. And then if somebody comes forward and says, you know what, I didn't realize like what an asshole I was, or I did that 10 years ago, and I feel like I need to self-examine, and that's pretty crappy. If you don't give somebody a chance to have any kind of restorative thing, if they really are like, didn't get it, don't cancel people. See what their earnest intent is. But if somebody wants to be a provocateur for the sake of being provocative, understanding that it's going to make people mad, and then people rise up against you and have a louder voice than what you have, and there's ramifications to that. Is that cancel culture, or is that people just being like, yeah, we don't like what you did, and so we're not here for it, and we're voting you down? Like, and I don't really understand. Like, I'm an abortion rights activist. I'm a comedian. I say provocative things all the time. I don't expect everyone to like me. I live in a world where actually my organization, myself, I've had activists, men's rights activists, anti-abortion rights activists try to get my accounts taken down. I expect that because that's what I do. I say things that are provocative to people, and I don't expect everyone to like it. If you want to have it both ways, it's nearly impossible to do so. And when it comes to like, I hear it across the board. I hear it in comedy, you know, and when I hear somebody on their Netflix special saying that cancel culture is destroying them, I'm like, you're on your 8th Netflix special talking about being canceled.
Right.
I think you don't understand what it means to not have a platform. You know, is it that you don't have a platform anymore? Or is it that you're mad that not everybody is just jumping onto your bandwagon, and now you have to assess your fan base, take a look at why people fell off, develop who's with you. Like, you know, you got to party with the people you brung.
Do you think there's a difference when we're talking about a stand-up comedian and a comment they made or a joke they might have made, whether it was a long time ago or even recently, and an author like J.K. Rowling's, or a politician in office or running for office, or some other, you know, the principal of a school saying something? In Australia, I just read that this celebrity chef, whoever he knew was pretty right-wingy, like, you know, posted a picture with Nazi imagery and the SS or something. It was bad, and they took all his books out of the stores, and they canceled his show. And I was like, yeah, I mean, you can't be posting Nazi imagery with that intention and that framing the way that this guy did. I'm not explaining it, and expect to keep your book at Walmart or wherever it's being sold. How do you differentiate between the kind of the canceling of comedians and others?
I think it's case by case. There is no blanket way to say cancel culture should be that if you do this, you should be canceled, is a ridiculous way to think. I think things come up and you have to assess a lot of it for yourself. Also, cancel culture isn't a bunch of people who got together and decided to cancel someone. It's all of a sudden my feelings that I felt about that thing I heard said is shared by a lot of people. And if there is a critical mass, you either vote someone out of office, or a lot of people don't buy your books anymore. If there's not a marketplace for what you do, assess that. If the marketplace for what you do isn't a marketplace you like, and you've brought in people to your marketplace that you thought you were whatever, joking or said something, own your marketplace, man. Because you're creating it. When it comes out of your mouth, you've created a marketplace, and then a lot of stuff can happen in that marketplace. I've said a million times, I'm sure you and I have had this conversation, that it is my belief that when I say something, the second it passes my lips, it's open to interpretation to all who hear, and I no longer own it. And my intention doesn't matter. It's how other people interpreted it that will be sort of the last result of it. That's what art is. An artist doesn't stand next to their painting and say, this is how I'd like you to see it because this was my intention. Debates break out because of art.
Yeah, so well said. Last question to kind of on this topic, which is in your new special, Corona Borealis, A Night of Comedy Under the Stars, which is so good. I'm just in the trailer and I cannot wait to see this. But part of it, you interview a transgender congresswoman named Andrea Jenkins. Do I have it right?
City councilwoman.
City councilwoman. And when it comes to, I want to say transgender and I want to say disabled community, I was just talking to a friend of mine who's disabled, and I am super ignorant on both of those communities because I don't know that many people, and I've tried to read up, but I don't know that many people in my life that are either transgender or disabled that I've had, thoughtful, honest conversations about these things with. And so I might make a mistake. I might say something wrong. I might address somebody the wrong way. I might say something ignorant. And I think that that's normal, especially with these populations where there's just not as much access. I think it's different when it's race or even sexual orientation, obviously gender. But like, I get upset when people in the transgender community or the disabled community, really let me have it. And it just hasn't actually even happened to me, but I see it a lot. We're like but then at the same time, I actually see the debate raging within those two communities who are people that are all well-intentioned. And so I feel like there needs to be a little bit more kind of patience and open-mindedness with some of these populations there just aren't as many people for us to be exposed to and understand, especially when they are having a kind of an argument within their own community. Have I said anything in what I just said that makes any sense and would elicit a response from you?
Yeah, it would. First of all, I would say there are plenty of trans people and disabled people for people to get to know. So to say that there aren't that many people, I would say we all have to open up our worlds to getting to know folks in a way that you can hear different points of view. I mean, the way people talk about disability or gender, there are debates within those communities for sure. There's also ways that within those they communicate. How can you be somebody who doesn't add to that flame or that fire? I think a lot of times in the course of us reevaluating who we are, how to live respectfully in a world, I think something that is very presence of mind for everyone is that when you are living in a world that, especially for trans people, it's dangerous for you to live in, people do not acknowledge your humanity. Remember this, the mistake that you made, harmless, just trying to do better, is probably the 30th time that somebody heard it that day. And so the pile on for that person is a reiteration of how many times people don't know who they are, and you're living in a space where you're hurtful and on the defensive all the time. And so trying to look at it from a perspective of, if you were the person that week that did that, somebody would probably say, hey, no, we're here. And so I try to exercise patience and with myself and apologize. And if somebody is lashing out at me, I have a lot of trans folks in my life, and I see how dangerous it is for them to wake up every day and walk the earth. It's exhausting. And so as we learn, it's like, let's just try a little bit to think about situationally how large what they come in contact with is every day. So that's where I go with that. Maysoon Zaid is a great guest you should have on to talk about disability.
That's actually who I talked to, and for some reason her name was escaping me. She's one of my oldest friends, and I couldn't think of it. Yeah. Maysoon Zaid. Yeah, watch her TED Talk and listen to my recent interview with her. Yeah,
she's really, really great at talking.
Well, she corrected me a couple times on this. That's where it came from, actually. Yeah, no, I'm glad that you mentioned her. She's so good at talking about it. And
yeah, and want to be heard and seen, and to be afforded the things that we take for granted, being able to walk into a room, being able to go to the bathroom in a public place, being able to walk on a path in a park that is accessible to you, to be able to walk safely as a trans person, to not have somebody want to stalk and beat you up because of who you are. It's all things that I don't have to go through in my life. And so I try to just check in with that all the time when I'm trying to figure out things. And because I hear you, sometimes it does feel like my intention didn't come from anger or trying to be disrespectful. It came from a lack of me just learning, because also a thing to remember, and I'll get off of this, is trans folks couldn't safely come out and be who they are and talk about what it's like to be. It wasn't safe. And so we had to second guess a lot of things. And so, there's a lot of discussion between older trans people and younger trans people and language and what that means and how everyone wants to identify. And I'm just willing to adapt so that people can be happy. And if I screw up and somebody goes, you keep calling me her or whatever. And it's like, I'm sorry. I'm trying to do my best. And I think people, nobody wants to be the teacher in the world that they live in.
Right.
And yet sometimes we all have to be. I have to sometimes talk to men about what it's like to be a woman. And, but as long as you and I are having conversations and you're not talking to a trans person about it, because sometimes they don't want to have to educate you, but somebody can help give you advice, I think that's also great.
I can't really relate to that. I think it's super important. By the way, I just loved everything that you just said as a really thoughtful, thought-provoking answer. But I think a lot of times people don't understand what it's like to be a bald white man. And so I'll have to sit them down and be like, you don't get what it feels like to be looked at as like a creep, like a sexual predator just because of my head. Or you don't know what it's like to have the sun beating down on my scalp, and it's exhausting for me. And so,
well, Pete, and I think that, and I'm sorry,
it happens less in the winter, but still, it's hard.
And I just want to say that I'm really sorry that
thank you.
On International Men's Day, I was centering the disabled and trans people.
Thank you.
So,
thank you.
I apologize for that.
You're very how woke of you to think of my needs.
It's hard. We all have to come back to that a lot. So thanks for reminding me that today's the day for men.
And thank you for doing your best to understand my struggle as a white bald American, because
I really do understand your struggle.
Constant judgment
and your sunburn and your peel. And it's really hard.
It hurts so bad.
Yeah.
So you have a new comedy special. It's really exciting. Everybody should watch the preview, and then you should buy it. I mean, you can rent it for $3.99, but you should buy it for $8. Majority of the proceeds go to Liz Winstead's nonprofit organization, Abortion Access Force. And when will, the only thing I don't understand about your on-demand special is when I can buy it. Corona Borealis, a night of comedy under the stars. Where and when can I purchase it and watch it immediately?
You can't watch it until November 25th, but you can purchase. You can pre-order
at midnight.
Now.
Oh, okay. You can pre-order now, and then it'll land, and let me know when it has landed, kind of a thing.
Yep, November 25th. We decided to release it the weekend of Thanksgiving and through the holidays because I hit all the touchstone topics that we'll be talking about throughout the holidays, either with a Zoom, with family, and it's basically. For those of you that don't know my past, I'm a political comedian and I have been for years. I co-created The Daily Show, Air America Radio. So I respond to the world. And so I hit the three buckets: systemic racism, I hit Corona and the fuckery around that, and the elections. And so it's going to be, it's kind of a purge of 2020. It's like, let's just barf it out, kick it to the curb, drag it for filth. Because 2020 just deserves a dragging for filth in a way that I feel like comedians can give it.
It's important to look back on the year. It's a kind of a historical perspective and things that we shouldn't forget, maybe that we did because there's been so many of them. But you also, like a lot of us have been performing outside. And you took it to a little bit different level. I mean, I've been performing in parking lots to cars. You performed on a lakeside in Minnesota, where you're from, and to a bunch of people in kayaks.
Yeah.
You got to watch the trailer for this. I can't even, when I watched the trailer for this, because we're friends, I was like, fucking Liz, oh my God, where did she come up with this? The people in kayaks and they had lights. It was the set of it. And the way that you are performing it is so much fun to watch. It must have been fun to be a part of. How do you describe it to a podcast audience, what you did?
Well, I write throughout the year, right? Because I normally every year do a massive year
end, yeah.
Right. And so I write throughout the year. And so I was writing, and I hadn't performed. I get to perform the material throughout the year and then whittle it down to the end show. This year, no mas.
Right.
So I've got piles of material that's untested. And so I have 2 music stands and I have notes. And so it's very raw. But what I did was I was like,
I love that, by the way.
Yeah. And I wanted to do something that was where people could gather safely. The year was really tough. So I wanted to feel pretty personal and COVID safe. So the part that you don't see in the special is that it was on a peninsula on a lake. And I had 10 picnic benches all over the place. And I made meals for 20 people, handmade them. And so they each had individual picnics that I made for them. I baked pie and had wine. And so you could only buy tickets in 2s. And so people had this picnic supper, and then they kayaked from the picnic to the spot where I helped build the set and put the lights up. And so it's a total DIY situation where I made the set, I made the food for the guests. They kayaked out. Each kayak had a little lantern on it. And I just went in hard. And then we did it in September. And I realized I really wanted to talk about the election because we just needed a place to go forward.
Yeah.
And so I did the second half of the show around 5 fire pits with 20 people. And we had marshmallows and mulled wine. And I finished off sitting in this snowy wooded setting and finished off the year outside I did it in 19-degree weather. And Minnesotans came out bundled up. They had blankets. I had hail bales that were spread out for people to sit on. And we had 4 to a fire pit where people were spread. It was really cool. So yeah,
I had no
outdoor extravaganza of one special in 2 different Minnesota weather types.
I had no idea you had such an eye for kind of like design and set decoration, because I loved it. I love what you did then, what you mostly it sounds like did. But how did you get to be one of the 20 was my question. How did you get to be one of the few people who got to be in the audience for this special taping? Because you want the right people who are going to enjoy and laugh and get a lot out of it. Did you like hand select 20 people?
I put out on my Minnesota fan list, I sent an email out that just said, I'm doing this show. The first 20 people can come. And it was in 10 minutes after the email went out. I had a waiting list of 300 people. And then I did it for the winter. And I was like, am I going to screw the pooch here? Like, and then I was like, no, Minnesotans, they just came. Like, they stood for Amy Klobuchar in a snowstorm. I was like, you come for my show. It'll be funnier, and I won't throw anything at you. So we're going to be good. So it was fantastic. And, I screened people ahead of time. Like, I kept the location secret for both things until the day of the show. I just said at proximity, it's 20 minutes from downtown. And so it was really amazing, and it felt very special. There's just also, I was really excited to do it so that, your reaction to me is perfect, so that other comics can say, I invested my own money into it knowing I wasn't going to be able to sell it to Netflix or HBO Max or something because of the time sensitive nature of it. So I knew I was going to self-produce and self-put it out, because Netflix, they'd have to see it and see cuts. Like, it's just not happening, right? The urgency of it, because it's so topical. And so, but it's really great to be able to say, and to have other performers see all the different ways that you can gather people and bring a sense of community and normalcy and humor to the world. You don't have to stop doing your art, and you don't have to just do it on Zoom, and you don't have to just do it in a parking lot. Right? You can figure out ways to do it. And we have to, because I do this job to connect with people. That's why I do it. I feel like my comedy is a vital organ. It's not an option. And so not hitting that sense and not working that out for folks, I don't know what I would do. So.
Well, I don't know what we'd do without it. I'm so glad that you did this. By the way, I actually should mention, I actually already did shoot a whole special on the lakeside with kayaks. I just didn't post it anywhere because it didn't go that well. But I'd already done it, just so you know.
I stole the idea from Pete. And I wanted to come clean on International Men's Day.
If I could be more clear, I did pretty much the same thing, and I rented even kayaks for people, but no one came. So I didn't have, no one showed up.
I'll be interested to see. You know, I was half nervous. I put up some photos right after I shot the first set. Knowing that it wasn't going to come out until mid-November. And I was like, God, should I post these pictures? Because some famous comic is going to go, that's cool, I'm going to do it, and then get it out really fast. And I was like, please don't let that happen. Please don't let that happen. So it didn't happen. On November 24th, somebody's going to put out a special with the audience in kayaks, and I'm going to totally host.
I'm going to do it now just because you said it's going to be so hard to turn around in 2 days. And I think I only have access to 2 canoes, but close enough to take credit for your special.
Well, also, I have to say, just as a plug for my organization, like, it's $3.99 to rent. It's $8 to buy. We work tirelessly to protect reproductive rights. And the benefits and proceeds go to my organization. So it's a good way to donate at the end of the year, donate to a cause that's great, and watch a show that's going to make you feel like, oh my God, that felt really good. Goodbye.
Available for pre-order now on Vimeo On Demand. The links will be in today's show notes. And as she said, Abortion Access Front is the organization that you're talking about that a lot of the proceeds are going to go to. Is there a website or something I should be saying that's the easiest way to get?
aaforce.org.
To buy the special. Or rent it.
Oh, yeah. You can buy the special at aaforce.org/Corona Borealis, or you can go to Vimeo On Demand and then type in Corona Borealis. And I called it Corona Borealis. It's kind of fun. It's a little bit of a terrible name because nobody knows what it means. But the Aurora Borealis are the northern lights, and they're very prevalent in Minnesota. It's one of the things that if you were born and raised in Minnesota, you've seen them at least once, and it is a magical thing. Well, there's actually a constellation in the sky that's called Corona Borealis. It's amazing. And so I not only did I make the meals and do all this stuff, I had masks made for all of my guests that is the constellation on the mask, and the stars glow.
Oh, that's
in the
so
dark.
great.
So when you see the special and you see the cutaways of the audience in the canoes, you'll see them wearing the mask of the actual Corona Borealis.
You did such a good job with the aesthetics that even if the comedy wasn't good, it would still be an awesome special.
I know, I can just elude people from the lack of funny with the beauty of the nature. Nature provides a lot. Yeah. And I provided some string lights and a plywood stage and some crates.
Well, congratulations on it. And then you shot this other half of it just this week because you wanted to do something post election. So, but let's get into, the last year, especially. It's been personally tragic for you. You've been public about your own loss of your sister, which I think
ALS, which is a tragic, tragic disease. It is. I got to tell you, I esoterically knew about ALS, Stephen Hawking, and to live with someone who has it is singly the cruelest thing I've ever watched anyone have to go through. And I wish it upon no one. It is really. So I came back to help be on her care team. And she was a very funny, great, interesting person. And she was the one who said, go do this, do it for me. So,
the special?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you guys are super close. When you don't know someone that well, and I know you pretty well, but not that well, like well enough to know like your familiar relationships and so on. Like, but yet I still knew that you were really close with your sister. So when I learned of her illness, I was like, nah, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, I know she's been such an important inspiration.
And illness, it's like a double whammy for folks. When you have a disease that is like ALS, and her last sort of mobility months were in quarantine with her husband. She couldn't see her grandkids, couldn't see her kids. And then her sort of the last phase of her life was sort of from June. She died September 1st. It was a lot of, it was intense, and she died, and the service that we had, this social distance family outdoor service. And the night before her service was when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. And so it was like, I don't know if I can take all of this at once. It's a lot.
I don't like that phrase that some religious people use, that God will never give you more than you can handle. I don't like that phrase.
I don't even know what that means. I also feel like it's really just cruel to people who can't have a hard time.
Who don't have the resources to handle certain types of adversity, which is basically everybody who has the resources to deal with any number of types of adversity, or support networks, or whatever you want to describe as resources. I just hate that phrase. It just it's not helpful.
No, it doesn't. It's not helpful at all. And it's just also that whole, like, it's a gift. You know what? Fuck you. If that's a gift, I hope you never pull my name for Christmas.
Your sister's name was Linda?
Mary.
What do I have? What is this? Is your other sister? Yeah. I'm trying to find your sister's name. Mary, what do you want us to tell? What do you want to tell us about Mary? The kind of person she was, the kind of person she made you, or what do we learn from her life?
So she is a writer and a painter, and she's somebody who throughout my entire career was my bailout. Like when I was broke, she would send me boxes of food. If I was like, can I crash on your couch? It was like, yes, for as long as you want. She was somebody who was without judgment when you had hard times.
Awesome. Have you been able to replicate those qualities for others?
Oh, no, I hate people in general. I just take for myself. What I do is it's about me. What I learned was take advantage of someone else so that you can reap the rewards.
I don't think that was what
that's my take.
Her intentions. Oh, all right. Well, I'm not going to second guess that.
I hope I do, Pete. I hope I give back.
You certainly do. You've always been a role model for me and so many other people who now, of course, who follow in your footsteps, work with you in your organization. I'm sure see you as a mentor. Abortion Access Front, by the way, aafront.org. I think I probably reached out to you the last time around the time that Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. But how do you describe the loss of her? I don't know if you want to answer in general or on the Supreme Court and what it means for the movement that you've been an inspiring leader and involved with for most of your career. The women's reproductive rights.
I know. To encapsulate it, it's pretty tough. But,
right.
She is somebody who, before it was safe or in fashion, dedicated her life to gender equality and especially reproductive freedom. And to be able to, even when she was in her nomination process for the Supreme Court, did not dance around how she felt about abortion rights, talked point blank, openly about that people have the fundamental right to abortion, which was shocking when everyone else dances around it. Yeah. And so her legacy on fighting for immigrant rights, LGBTQ rights, women's rights, she was a pioneer on so many levels and then it just feels so empty to have this 49-year-old ideologue who is just belongs to a creepy religious sect that you have to have your husband and your Jesus whisperer's opinion to make opinions, and you're making opinions around.
Are those two separate rights. People, the husband and the Jesus whisperer? You have to go through both of them to get.
You have an assigned Jesus whisperer.
I don't know what you're talking about. Amy Coney Barrett, you're talking about.
Yes, Amy Coney Barrett. Or Scary Decisis, as I call her. That's a joke.
That's illegal. Yeah.
It's about your 6 people who care about
that's good. I got it.
Welcome. For those of you who enjoyed that joke, you're welcome.
There's a lot of legal scholars that listen to this podcast, no doubt.
Hammer the hook. Yeah.
So what does it mean? What do you think? What is your interpretation of what it means for the legal rights, or what have we seen so far in terms of women's reproductive rights? Nationally, federally, and in terms of state rights, what are your concerns? Because my understanding is that there's a difference of opinion on what the Supreme Court will do when it comes to reproductive rights, and then what that means in real on the ground across the country. And the other point that I'm sure you agree with, but I just talked to my good friend Eric Siegel, who's a constitutional law scholar, said you can never, ever end abortion. You can't even decrease abortions. There's nothing you can do about it. You can make it illegal. It will not stop abortion. It will not decrease.
It'll make it unsafe and make it very dangerous.
You agree with that, though, just to be clear?
Yes, 100%. Abortion's been around for 4,000 years. I mean, so what are we talking about here?
And it's getting easier in a way. Like, you don't necessarily need a procedure. Like, you can't stop someone from taking a pill. You could try.
Well, you can stop the access to the pill, which is
you can make it
thing.
Right.
So let me answer your question to get to that point.
Sorry.
What I would say is what we need to really be looking at is while we are going to change the administration, we have state legislatures from around the country who are repeatedly passing laws to end abortion. With the way that McConnell and company have stacked our lower courts with ideologues and people who are not qualified to be there, crackpot laws that get passed that we see pop up on the news are being passed all the time. They are now going to go through a court system that instead of saying, well, that's unconstitutional, they're going to say, oh, that seems constitutional. I'm going to send that through to a Supreme Court, and to a Supreme Court that is got many, many people on the Supreme Court that believe that Roe was not argued honestly and within the Constitution, does not believe that Roe is set precedent. And we already have laws in states that go against Roe. It's just a matter of, does your state have an attorney general that's going to fight against that law? Right. So Roe doesn't even matter. What matters is a case that came after Roe that's called Planned Parenthood v. Casey.
Mm-hmm.
And not to get in the weeds, but that's the law that gave states the right to chip away at the constitutionality of Roe and say states can modify Roe and put in restrictions as long as it doesn't cause a, quote, undue burden. And that's the phrase the courts use. But they never defined undue burden. So that's why you can have all these loopholes like waiting periods and
hallway widths, the width of a hallway.
The hallway. And, there's many states that have a law in place that the doctor has to lie about abortion to say it can cause breast cancer, it can cause mental illness, it can cause sterility. These aren't true, but a doctor is forced to say them because the anti-abortion extremists got the law passed. So there's lots of things like that on the book. So what we need to watch as citizens is really paying attention to what happens in our state and local government, and elect people who aren't going to pass these laws to begin with, because there is a fast track to ending legal abortion. Because if Roe v. Wade gets overturned in one of these court cases, there's several states, almost 10 on the books, that have a trigger law that immediately says abortion is illegal in all cases in our state.
Right.
So it's no time to rest on your laurels. And what we do at Abortion Access Force is we work with a lot of activists on the ground. We've traveled to more than 35 states, work with the local activists there and legislators and clinics so that we can help raise awareness so that folks can understand what the laws are in their states, how they can fight back, the organizations they can sign up with. Because while I love Planned Parenthood, people default to Planned Parenthood a lot, and a lot of states don't even have a Planned Parenthood. Right. And it's a larger issue around the local mom and pop clinics that are doing the work, the local activists that are doing the work, and doing that really strong legislative work so that when you go in to vote, you make sure that you're voting for folks who are going to protect your fundamental right to abortion. And what your organization needs is resources to do the great work that you do, which is a lot different, like you said, than Planned Parenthood. So please donate to Lizz's organization, aafront.org, and you can also buy or rent the special, and proceeds will go to the cause for that too. I could talk to you for another hour. I know you're super busy. I really appreciate your time, and I hope that we can do it again soon, because I miss talking to you, and I'm so sorry again for your loss, and I love you, and I am inspired by you, and I will do whatever you tell me to do about almost anything. Like if you give me a command right now, I would, and it's within reason, I think I can make it happen. So all right, push my special. That's my command. Corona Borealis, everybody, and I'll go do it on social media and on this podcast, and so excited for it. I can't wait to watch it. I'm going to watch it with my family, and thank you very much. Mwah. There you go, Lizz Winstead, Corona Borealis. Get the special now on video on demand. And I do want to say at the very opening of that interview, we kind of tongue-in-cheek the whole concept of International Men's Day. And it's easy to trash guys, but of course, I love so many men in my life, and I'm being completely serious. I mean, literally hundreds of men that are in my life that I respect and that I adore and I find to be some of the greatest people that I've ever met in my life. And I don't want to joke
about men's health, because men's health is in crisis. And I've worked with organizations like Movember, who are having their campaign right now, No Shave Movember. And they say men are dying on average 6 years earlier than women for largely preventable reasons. Unchecked prostate cancer rates will double over the next 15 years. Globally, testicular cancer is the most common cancer among men aged 15 to 39 years of age. And across the world, one man dies by suicide every minute of every day, with males accounting for 75% of all suicides. And check out Movember.com and the great work that they do. So I feel a little bit bad, a little bit guilty about joking about International Men's Day, because if we talk about men's health, and we should, there's another perspective to be provided, and I always want to share that with you. So let's stay connected so that we don't get lost and lonely and depressed, especially as we head into this dark winter. Join the community, sign up for a prescription and a subscription. I think it's both at patreon.com/Pete Dominick, or go to the paid subscription link in the show notes and be part of our community of curious, kind, generous, compassionate, hilarious, intelligent, brilliant, amazing people. Check it out, and you're never alone, because we've got the Discord platform going and lots of new subscribers this week. I'll give you shout-outs next week on Monday, but please sign up. Always love when new people join over the weekend. And also, please visit the show's only sponsor, my only partner so far ever, which is GiveWell, givewell.org/standup. Please go make a donation and make sure that you tell them that I sent you. All right, that's it. I'll talk to you next week.